Hey there, fellow nerds and geeks, artist alley evangelists, and supporters of independent creators. Aaron Nabuz here, and on behalf of my co-host, Alex Benedicto, thanks for tuning in to the Hall H Show podcast. We recently attended the inaugural Black Comix Day 2018 that took place on Saturday, February 17th at the Black Comix Library in San Diego, California. This event, organized by Keithan Jones, owner of the comic book publishing company Kid Comics and creator of the comic book The Power Knights, brought together some amazing Black comic book creators. Two creators, David F. Walker and John I. Jennings, joined forces with moderator Hannibal Tabu for the panel, Heroes Rise, the importance of Black artists in popular media, which highlighted why events such as Black Comix Day 2018 are needed. Enjoy this recording of the panel, and please go support and buy comics from Black independent creators.
And I talk too fast. So if you see me talking too fast, wave your arms in the air and I'll try to calm down. So you are at Heroes Rise, the importance of Black artists in popular media, and I didn't memorize that when I made this PowerPoint yesterday morning. My name is, well, we'll get into who we are in a moment, but first I'm going to introduce our panel here. So before we get into that, we're going to talk about what we're going to do today is we're going to cover who are these guys that you're looking at. What's the problem that we are often addressing, and how sometimes we get put on the page, but can we keep paid? What's the solution moving forward? And these gentlemen are going to shine the spotlight on some things that they feel are of high quality, and it'll be your time to shine with question and answer. So that's the general modus operandi for today. Our first gentleman here, Professor David F. Walker. I could stand and read through all of his credits, but we have the internet and I don't need to. So you can look up David online. He can be found on Instagram as MofoMan68, and I'm not going to start with that. At Twitter at David Walker 1201, is that correct?
Yes.
And of course, you have a mic there. So website, what?
David F. Walker, just all one word, David F. Walker.
DavidFWalker.com?
I just launched it, really recently. Yeah. It took 2 years.
All right. So, to be short, David is a filmmaker, he is an educator, he is a journalist, he's worked in professional journalism, he's written pretty much everything that you can write, and he knows what he's talking about. So if you look him up, you'll find out much more of that. Or if you read fast, you may catch it on the screen. Because I'm going to move on now to Professor John Ira Jennings. I learned that he has to distinguish because there's a musician named John Jennings who does not look like you.
That's totally true.
And it was very annoying trying to find this picture with the fly sweater and all, he looked real professorial.
I know, I'm sorry about that. And I think that gentleman is passed on too, right? As I recall.
Yeah, his Google presence is very strong.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Okay.
Likewise, you can look John up online. He is J.I. Jennings70 on Instagram and J.I. Jennings on Twitter. You do have a website as well that people can find.
Actually, I need to get a website. Sorry.
All right, well,
I make too much.
I'm a little too expensive. I would offer, but I'm too expensive.
Right.
But John has taught all over the place. He's taught at the State University of New York. He's now at the University of California at Riverside. He is an Eisner winner. He co-founded and organized the Black Comix Arts Festival in San Francisco last month, which was a big thing. And he has a new book out there on the table, which is called
Black Comix Returns.
And you can get it signed for how much?
Oh, $30.
$30. It's lovely. It's a hardcover book. All right.
Yep.
And likewise, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on myself because I'm a jerk who talks too much. But I won the 2012 Top Cow Talent Hunt. I have a weekly comic book review column on Comic Book Resources, one of the leading sites in comic journalism. I'm a published poet. I just recently was in a new volume called Voices from the Park Redux. I've got 2 self-published novels. I'm in a whole bunch of comic books and yada, yada, yada. And like I said, I talk too much. So if you want to find me, I'm at HannibalTabu.com. And Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr is just at Hannibal Tabu because I believe in simplicity and not making you work as hard as these guys. So.
And the other one?
What?
Your network?
Oh, you'll find that there. Everything's connected. Everything's connected. I got a plan, man. I got a plan.
You can tell them.
I got a plan. We'll get to that in a moment. I got pictures. I got a plan. I did this yesterday morning, but I have a plan. Anyway, so the gentleman in front is somebody I know. We're hearing a cosplayer, photographer. Okay, so what is the problem? What is the problem? Now, in the professional comics market in the United States, less than 3% of the creators are black. I'm not saying less than 3% of the writers. I'm not saying less than 3% of the artists. 3% period are black. Colorists, letterists, the whole shebang. A lot of black characters, when you see them in comics, are sidekicks, supporting characters, comic relief, or if you are Will Eisner, you'll make them very dangerous stereotypes of ebony white. But the major comic book characters, the major comic book companies are stuck in a rut on how those characters should be. They are either from black neighborhoods, athletes, they're always staying oh no, I'm gonna just stay in my hood. I can't really go in your neighborhood and string stuff out.
I can't save the world.
Yeah.
I could just save my block.
Yes. Very good.
Baddest hero on the block. Superman gonna save the world. I'm gonna save my high school.
2 blocks over Also, they for now, they pick up the mantle of an existing hero. Say, I'm going to be the next Green Lantern. I'm going to follow in Professor Xavier's steps. Or, they don't have their own agenda. Or they can be weak in character. They're killed first, like Darwin in the X-Men First Class movie, whose only power was to live through things, and he's the first guy to die. Yes, I'm still angry about that. Bryan Singer can go to hell. So I'm going to ask these gentlemen to talk about, let's identify, just for this slide, we won't talk about this problem too long, we won't talk solutions. Let's identify the problem so we can move past it. And I'll start with Professor Jennings. What do you think is the nature and the damage, potential damage of this situation?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, and I look at this quite a bit, is representation is extremely powerful, right? And I always say that what you don't show is just as important or just as powerful as what you do show, right? It's the shape of an absence, right? And so there's this notion, and I talk about this a lot, and I get tired of myself talking about it, but symbolic annihilation, right? Which is this, it's this terminology that comes from sociology that talks, it was created in the 1970s. And basically it states that if you don't show proper representations of people, that you're symbolically destroying them. Let's think about this historically, basically, is that whenever a colonizer or invading force would come in, the first thing that they do is they try to destroy your stories, your history, and images. Because these things, the art, anything that you've made, because that represents the kind of like cultural production of, of a people, right? So then we think about like, our ancestors who were captives, now they weren't immigrants, who were captives, the first thing that a slave owner would do was not allow you to express yourself, destroy your language, destroy your culture. So whenever you see something like this where like you're not being represented properly, what's happening is you're symbolically destroying or erasing that type of expression, right? And so what we were trying to do is like, well, how do we actually like deal with that issue through creating like resistance spaces like this? Actually, this is a resistance space, right? And I think that's some of the things we can start. I'm going to stop talking about them, let David join in. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really interested in is how do we counter symbolic annihilation through research, creating networks and community.
Professor Walker.
Yeah, I think, well, part of it, I agree with everything John said, but then on top of that, we have to look at an industry. We're talking about the comic book industry primarily, and the direct market that isn't catered to be user-friendly to anybody who's not already familiar with it, right? And so we're looking at like, Black Panther is in the theaters and everybody's going to see it, but people aren't necessarily rushing out to buy Black Panther comics, and those comics that are being produced are not user-friendly to the literally millions of people who are going to the movies but don't understand comics. So if you walk into a comic book store today or tomorrow or Monday after going to see the movie, and you go, hey, I want a Black Panther comic, I guarantee you most of the comic book stores you're going to go to are going to be, they're not going to know what to put in front of you. You're going to be intimidated, right? And so the problem is that there's no real point of entry. But then it's also, we're talking about an industry that's still largely controlled by the same people who have been controlling it since its inception. And it's not to necessarily say, I mean, Harvey Kurtzman is dead, and William Gaines is dead, but their children and their grandchildren are running these industries. It's still very much the old boy network. Like, if the old boy network exists in film, music, and television, like, those are more progressive than the comics industry, which is the saddest statement in the world because we're not exactly talking about like the most progressive of people, or the most progressive of industries. And so part of what we have to do, like even in an event like this, John and I have been involved with the event in Harlem, which is also called Black Comic Book Festival, and then there's the Black Comix Arts Festival in San Francisco. So we've seen how successful these events can be. Yes. But the key is we're always partnered with a library. It's always free, and libraries are about literacy, right? Whereas most conventions now are about trying to get you to pay $150 to have your picture taken with the cast of The Walking Dead. They don't care if you know how to read or not, right? And representation isn't necessarily important to them or not. Whereas it's like, well, my key audience can't afford the $100 tickets to get into a show, and I'm not gonna lie, like I'm still a capitalist pig, right? But it's like, if you pay $150 to get into the convention, that's less money you have to give to me. Right. So I'm like,
that's real talk.
Let me go to the library where it's free to get in, and then you can just give me all your money. It's so much nicer that way. It's more of a family vibe. And it's like, I'm going to go over to John's house and buy dinner for him and his wife, and we're good. And the economy keeps going.
I'm not getting good.
And you come over too. So, but that's it. It's like what we're seeing now, I think, on this level, and what a lot of people don't understand is like John and I talk about this, the need and the importance of building community and engaging on multiple levels. So it's not just about the creation of stuff. It's not just about the criticism of stuff. It's all about the education. It's all about making sure that we're doing outreach. And because I hate to say it, but the big publishers, they don't care if you know how to read. If I meet a kid who doesn't know how to read, like my heart is breaking. Yes. But they're like, hey, you got $5 to buy this comic? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. I want them reading. I'm on a tangent.
No. But a kid who can read will make more $5 to buy more comics.
Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely the. Well, the other thing too is like the comic book industry. Okay, let's look at the big two in particular. Right? It's Marvel Comics and DC Comics. Mm-hmm. They are masquerading as comic book companies. They publish comic books, right? But they're actually a finger of a huge multinational entities.
Get them, Shaggy.
They're pretty much like, I know, right? Yeah, they're not comic book companies. They pretend to be. They don't care about the color of Superman's costume, the proper color blue, right? These types of things that the fans actually love. They are IP farms, or intellectual property farms, and basically they are tasked with keeping these trademarks alive and actually using these characters as ways to create films, animated series, what have you. Merchandise, exactly. And that's where they make more money. And so the comic book aspect of these huge entities. I mean, Marvel Comics is owned by Disney, the mouse, right? And then Warner Brothers, the rabbit, owns DC Comics. So these are huge entities that are actually utilizing these comic books, as we can see, to spectacular fashion.
One of them.
What? We're not going to do that today.
That's a good point.
We're not going to do that today.
But that's the other thing too, is like these are not entities like that. And they kind of prey off of this notion of nostalgia quite a bit too, right? And these are other things like, I was reading Superman as a kid, right? Yeah. It's not your father's comic book company,
Very much so, because we see lots of people walking around with Batman t-shirts, Superman logo t-shirts, and they wouldn't be able to pick Lois Lane out of a lineup. And that's not a bad thing, but the fact that, in David's point, that they are not as literate as they could be, that they're absorbing information a different way, is a challenge. Because, if I can learn, for example, that the speed of light is 186,000 miles per hour from Dr. Solar, that's where I learned that. But the first time I learned any French was from Iron Man. Oh, yeah. I'm not a professor, but I got some stuff together.
I was like, no, per second, but never mind, go ahead.
Did I didn't say per second? I've had a lot to drink, so that's fair.
I'm just messing with you. Go ahead.
No,
but it's true.
The professor would have to correct me. You make good points. So one of the issues that is also brought up very often is that they're happy to make black characters, but they're not happy to have black creators, which is the focus of our panel today. That they can put us on the page, but can we get paid? When you see a Riri Williams, when you see Vixen, when you see Miles Morales, these are interesting characters that sometimes have challenges. For example, Miles Morales here had a wonderful page where he says, I don't want to be the black Spider-Man. I want to be Spider-Man. But that's not the way Earth works, player. And with all due respect, had the writer known that experience, he might have seen that a different way. So, when you are talking, both of you have worked in comics professionally, both of you have dealt with a lot of things. What have you seen as some of the reasons why equally talented or even more talented, especially in the case of John's art, people don't get more assignments from larger companies?
That's a great question.
It's a combination of factors. One is, the editors tend to hire who they know, or they look within their
That's true.
the world that they know. They're asking around. They don't necessarily know the right place to look. But then the reality, one of the other factors is like, because I teach, we both teach, right? And so it's not just my students that I say this to, but like I have this young cat who's emailing me all the time about breaking into comics, and he's written and self-published 2 comics over the last 2 years, and he's like, how come I can't get a job at Marvel? And I'm like, yo, son, publish like 200 more over the next 20 years, and that's how you have to do it. Like I told somebody today, if you look at the stuff on my table, my self-published stuff isn't on the table. There's more of my self-published stuff than there is my stuff that publishers have done. The big publishers I've been working for 5 years, self-publishing I've been doing for nearly 25 years, right? And so that's the key, is like, I think there's a lot of tremendously talented people out there, but they're not getting seen because they're not in the line of sight of that inner circle, but they also haven't been doing it long enough. Like, this was when I go to San Diego, this Comic-Con this year, it's only my 20th year. Like I've been slogging away. Like people, they started giving me work, they're like, yeah, I'm just tired of seeing this dude. If I give you work, will you just not come by next year? It's like, yeah, if you give me work this year and guarantee for the next 2 years, I won't see you for 3 years.
That's like barter.
But I think that's a huge part of it. But it's also, it's like, well, what are the stories that we want to tell? And they don't understand us a lot of times, or more importantly, they think they understand us. And then if you want to bring something slightly different to the table, then it becomes this big, because their bottom line is to make money. But most publishers are only concerned right now, and this is to the detriment of the industry as a whole, they're only concerned with exploiting the audience as it exists, not growing the audience.
Exactly.
And so,
that's a great point.
Yes, it is. Yeah, but that's the thing. Somebody asked me for advice on how to be a writer, and I was like, you need to read a lot of books, and it shouldn't be comic books that you're reading.
Right.
Like if all you're when I read a comic, I can tell within 1 page or 2 pages, this person only reads comics, and those comics always suck. I teach, and my students who only read comics be like, what other books do you read? I read comics. Yeah, but what books have you read? How much James Baldwin have you read? How much, you can even read like some Harlequin romances. I don't care, but have you read books? No, I only read comics. Well, then get the hell out of my class. Because you're not concerned.
For this class.
What's your favorite Shakespeare play? I've never read any Shakespeare. Come on. How can you not read Shakespeare? I was in high school, barely graduated, and I still read Shakespeare. So.
Yeah. No. How do I follow that?
Yeah.
No, I was thinking like, because what do you say? Eloquent. Very eloquent. One of the things that
that you touched upon too is like capitalism as a system, it hides process.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we're taught to be consumers and not producers, right? And that's one of the big issues. So I'm really happy about. I loved it when they started doing like the DVD extras, so you can see like how films were created and things like that. Because what's happened is because of the internet and because of like the access to applications, you've kind of like democratized the creation process to a certain degree. But still, people aren't looking at how these particular like systems work. They don't understand like distribution. They don't understand business. They're not looking at the idea of gatekeepers, right? And and so you're right. I mean, I think that not only are they not reading, but they're not really understanding the business that they're trying to get into, which to me is like one-on-one. Like, how does this thing work, right? The other thing is there are multiple comic book industries. That's the other thing. For instance, you have like the mainstream superhero market, right? Direct market, but there are other industries, right? So if you really want to make comics, you look at all the other spaces that you can make comics in, and how do they function as a medium, and not necessarily making just superhero things, right? Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like, oh well, when Jim Lee says, oh, the comic book industry's in trouble, I was like, well, which one are you talking about? Maybe the one you're working in, but I'm seeing some other things that are growing too. That's the other thing. So I think that's also an issue as well.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't want to spend too long on the problem. I want us to have a clear understanding of it. So let's look at what is the solution. How are we going to move forward from this point? This book right now is $30. It's right outside.
Here. I'm sorry.
All these people in here. As John implied, I use a Sting quote a lot of times. There's a deeper world than this tugging at your hand. Ooh. And the idea that superheroes don't start and end with Superman and Spider-Man, and the comics don't start and end with Mouse or Watchmen. That there are deeper things in this. There are more stories to tell. There are a lot of people, many of whom are literally in the next room, making work that's good as or better than what's done by the mainstream. There's a gentleman that I work with out there named Ray Height. Ray has drawn the X-Men.
I'm just kidding.
Don't do that, man. I'm working this table.
I'm being the class clown.
I'm the class clown. You're the professor. That's how this works. Anyway, Ray has done work for the X-Men. Jason Reeves has done stuff for DC Comics. David himself has written for both big two companies. So it's not like we don't know what we're doing. It's not like these are amateurs walking in here. I've written for Image Comics. I've written for Aspen Comics. I'm not new to the game myself. When you look at this, how can independent black creators, using spaces like this and using some of the democratization that you talked about, start to change this, I don't know if it's a black geek Stockholm syndrome, but this idea that people are trapped. If I don't buy from DC and Marvel, I'm not in comics, what's happening? Can you talk to them about how they can access this deeper world tugging at their hand?
Well, I think part of it is it's not just accessing black audiences, right? Because if you're only writing something if you're writing something really good, it will appeal to people on a human level, right? So I think that should be first and foremost your goal.
Right.
Although representation is also very important to me, right? But I think part of it is tapping into not just events like this and audiences like this right here, but it's building a sense of community, right? So, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I've worked for some decent-sized publishers who don't know how to sell a book. Like, it's as plain and simple as that. It's like, if they were drowning, they would say, please, somebody toss me an anvil. Right? If I'm drowning, I'd be like, yo, help, throw me a life preserver. Like, I know how to survive drowning, right? It's give me a life preserver, float on my back, whatever it is. So one of the things is like I want to surround myself with people who got life preservers, right? As opposed to a bunch of people with anvils and anchors. And you build that community, and so like I sell. There's certain books that I've written for publishers that I have now sold more units of that book than they've sold. Okay. Now the key thing is in order to get those books, even though I've written them, I have to buy them from the publisher. Actually, I have to buy them from the distributor, so I'm not even getting a good discount, right? So again, as a capitalist, this does not make sense. I am like a drug dealer was having to buy my stuff from a supplier who's buying it from a supplier, right?
Inelegant.
Yes.
I know.
So I need to start making my own drugs. I need to cut out at least one of the middle persons.
Right.
And so the thing is like I can come to a show like this and know for a fact that I'm going to sell more copies of book X than were sold in all of last year at retailers. I mean, I've literally had that happen. And I'm talking shows like this one. And that's the thing, you have to not be afraid to come to, there's some people that are, like I've gone to shows where like, oh, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have gone to Boise, Idaho. But they flew me out, and I have a friend who lives out that way, but it was like, you know, I only sold a few books, but those few people hopefully will follow me someplace else. So it really is about like taking a lot of it, like your cue from the way hip hop used to be. Like I always have books in the trunk of my car, right? And now the next move is to make sure that those books that I have in the trunk of my car are books that I've published myself, that I own 100%. And I was like, boom. I added more out of the trunk of the car. So that's
Robert Roach has more to take one.
But it really is about building community. It's and engaging with people on a personal level.
John, I want to ask you, because you worked specifically with the Schoenberg and with Black Comix Arts Festivals, what are the challenges in creating spaces like this where people can have this access, and how can we work to overcome some of those challenges?
So a lot of times when I'm working with institutional spaces, I'm a mediator, I'm an interpreter, right? So for instance, one of the books I'm selling out there, or I'm almost sold out of actually, is Out of Sequence.
How many more are available?
Well,
There's like two,
I think
because I bought
like
How much does it cost?
$20.
Which book is it?
Out of Sequence.
Okay, out of sequence. Keep it out.
Unrepresented Voices of American Commerce. So, for instance, one of the things that we had to do was like translate the language of like the comics industry or comics in general to the institution. Because a lot of times, like institutional spaces, just like if you think of them as a medium, right? Like for instance, media, is this kind of like abstract idea, right? It's like it has particular affordances, that kind of thing. Comics do a particular thing, television does, and spaces do too. They function like a medium. A lot of times they need content, right? But they don't understand the content that they're bringing in sometimes, so you need an interpreter. So a lot of times when I'm working with teams of people to put together these events, we're trying to get content picked up by the space. Like, okay, this is why it's effective, these types of things. And then try to pull in the best people for, like yourself, for instance, to moderate, to help put these ideas together. And the other thing is outreach to the community, right? Because they're not used to dealing with, well, a library is for reading and writing and these particular types of literacies. Well, comics are a different type of literacy. And actually, in some ways, a more effective way of putting out a particular idea because it's multimodal. For instance, I mean, you guys watch CNN.
Break the term now, multimodal. Get real professorial.
Okay, check this out. So, I was talking about different affordances, right? So, television tells a story in a particular way. Prose tells things in a particular way. These are different modes of discourse, right? Comics combine various types of modes. What? Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? So, for instance, if you're watching CNN, right? You see the person talking to you.
Yeah.
You see something happening right here, like the image there. You see stuff running under it at the same time. These are different modes of reading that are happening simultaneously. Comics have always been that. So they're an interesting way. I know. I knew.
You know what? For whatever reason, I'm thinking of the old Saturday Night Live with Garrett Morris for the hearing impaired.
Oh yeah.
What we're talking about is different modalities.
Right. And so comics pull all those things together. So when you have like librarians or people who work with the community who are forward thinking about, well, we need to teach kids various modes of reading and various modes of discourse, then you can get these particular events like this in place, right? Or if you're looking at, okay, this is about representation, this is about empowerment. Or if you think about like image making, history, these are different modes as well, right? So that's what it's about, selling those ideas. And then I think once you get the institution to say, oh, I get it, I get how this relates to our mission, I get how this relates to the community that we're serving, then you got it. You got it. So for Schoenberg, for instance, the repository of the Harlem Renaissance, essentially.
And not just the Harlem Renaissance, but really black popular culture. Black artistic culture.
Yes.
I mean, when you go to if any of you ever get a chance to go to the Schomburg in Harlem, it's like
And it's free to get in.
Yeah,
And it's free.
It's you know, not to give it a any sort of spiritual or religious vibe, but it's like going to Mecca of African American art.
That's right.
And you just sort of walk through the door and you're like, yo, just like the stuff that is here, like you can feel it. It's alive. There's a heartbeat.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, literally, like some of the ashes of Langston Hughes are buried in an urn in the foundations of the space.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole. Yeah, if you walk into the space, Aaron Douglas's work is hanging from it. So imagine, this is, as you say, like Mecca for like Black history, right? And then you, for that day, right? We are the default. Like it's on Lenox Avenue. It's Malcolm X Boulevard.
Yeah.
It's the heart of Harlem. You come off the train, bam, you're in the Schomburg, and then everything there is you. Automatically, you are the default. So you have all these kids. We've actually serviced, as far as like people coming to, over 40,000 kids have come into this space over the last 6 years who never have to know what it's like to not be the central to the story. To know what it means
To not be the comedic relief, to
That's
not
right,
be the
yeah.
sidekick, to be boom.
This
Focus
is about
on
me.
it. Yeah.
And all these artists like ourselves are the creators of it. And so they know that they can be empowered, they can do this themselves, you know? And so that's part of it as well. So see, this is part of the mission, is to, you know, basically say like, okay, not only can you create this, but you can actually be the center of the story and you can do this. You can actually like have a whole community yourself. And this has been around, spaces like this have been around since the mid-90s as far as like, you know, Black comic book publishers, right?
How long has Malcolm X Library been in, bro?
Malcolm X Library has been here for 20 years. This is our
20 years.
20 years.
20 years. So these spaces are available.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's how you do it. You have to work with the mission. It's a negotiation. One of the other things, and this is something we kind of deal with too. Like for instance, with the BCAF that we work with, is that we work with the MLK NorCal, the Martin Luther King of Northern California. It's a citywide non-for-profit that celebrates the legacy of Dr. King. Right. So there's a huge celebration every MLK Day, and there's a commemorative march that happens, and there's all different types of festivals, and our festival is one of those festivals, right? So there's 7 different festivals. So we do the march, they meet up at the Yerba Buena, and they split off in all these different festivals. And it's a city-sponsored event. It's totally free. And the space that we're in actually can still take a little bit of growth. Like it's actually a nice space. It's called the City View Metreon. So it's at the top of the City View building where you can see all of San Francisco, you know, and people come in there and they actually do really well in that space. So that space can actually grow, but a space like this, and also like the Schomburg, they're not convention spaces, right? So we have to kind of finagle the space, right? Figure out how you're going to do traffic flow and things of that nature. I think the Schomburg actually, what we're going to have to do now is actually find like satellite spaces. One of the models that we've used is the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, which is like one of my favorite shows. It's put on by the Toronto Research Library. It's a beautiful space, totally free, 2 days. Brings in 10 to 12,000 people, you know, a year. It's in May. It's in Toronto. When I saw what they do, it's about local talent. It doesn't really look at the mainstream a lot. That was a model. That's why I stole the name. So there's the TCAF.
You sampled it.
I sampled it and remixed it. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And I was BCAF, the Black and Brown Comic Arts Festival, right? And when I saw that, it's like the love of the medium is like forefront. Right?
Yeah.
It's got a lot of children and a lot of families come through. It's totally free, and it celebrates the medium of comics. And that's what brings us together. We love comics, right? We all love comics. So yeah, so that's the thing too. It's like, how does it relate to these spaces like that? So what they've done is they actually have satellite partnerships, right? So if they have overflow, they have overflow space where you can actually go and see a panel like this, like in a building next to it. That's what I think the next step for the Schomburg is probably that, because first of all, one day it just got too big, because now it's actually at the size of the TCAF, and it's bursting at the seams.
The event that we do at the Schomburg is the single biggest event they do all year long at a space that's been around for nearly a century. Like, so their max capacity is like 1,500 people, and we get about 8,000 a day. And it's like 20 degrees out. I mean, y'all can't even comprehend it. You're in San Diego.
I don't do Schomburg.
Yeah, it's cold. What is that just... cold. But then, you know, you look at this event, and Keithan, who was one of the key people that put it together, reached out to everybody a couple months back, and it was like, I was like, well, you know, this will either be a hit or it won't be. Only one way to find out. Let's go. Let's see if we can make this happen.
We're
trying to make this happen. So, and that community is meant to be as inclusive as it can possibly be, at least in my philosophy, because I know how excluded I've felt, right?
This is a safe space for you.
Yeah, exactly. But it's for everybody. For everybody. I mean, like that was, we had it was at the Schomburg, not this year, but last year, where there was some guy cosplaying as Black Panther, right? So Civil War had come out.
Yeah.
But there's like this little white kid in Harlem at the Schomburg, and he was like, Black Panther! and like his mom was like, no, that's a guy dressed up, and he was like, no, I think that's the real Black Panther. And it was one of those things to see like this, and then I've seen white kids wear their Black Panther costumes. They don't have blackface on. They just have that
That'd
costume.
be a problem. Don't do that.
But it's
Don't
like
get punched in the face at school.
because you see little black kids running around all the time dressed as Captain America or Iron Man or Superman, and it's like whatever. But I was like, the moment I saw white kids dressed as Black Panther, and again without the blackface, I was like, wow, we've actually come someplace that like this never happened before, you know. And now you're seeing like in a week you're gonna see little white kids running around going.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah.
exactly.
Right over left kids. It's always right
We
over
are
left.
Wakanda. No, that's totally true. It's an extremely empowering space, and it's a lot of work, as you know. I mean,
Yes.
we work very hard to put on these spaces, but I don't know. I just want to empower creators of color, creators from various backgrounds who don't have the access. I mean, when me and Damien started doing curatorial work, Damien Duffy, who actually is a white creator and has been like my brother for another
We don't hold it against him.
I know. He's he's a high level. Anyway,
very light.
Very light.
He could come to the cookout.
Yeah.
He come to cookout, exactly. But man, we just didn't like the fact that people were being excluded from a particular space, and this was not just black creators. This was creators who were like too independent, or they were doing things that weren't in the mainstream, or they're LGBTQ creators.
They're too queer.
Too weird, this kind of thing. And we created out of sequence because of that, and we realized, like, man, this is an audience that needs to be.
Only two of those left, right?
That's
$20.
I don't even know.
Okay.
They might be gone.
Might be gone.
Anyway, but yeah, that's how I started down this road, because there was a show out of LA called the Masters of American Comics. It was 2005. It had 15 of the greatest comic book artists ever in it, including Jack Kirby, Will Eisner, E.C. Segar. I mean, just like giants, people that I loved, that I grew up reading. But the first thing that we noticed is there were no women in the show. No women at all. I was like, wait, really? So there's no Jackie Orms, there's no Colleen Durant, there's no Wendy Pini?
That part.
Right? So that hurt us. We were like,
No Joe Duffy.
No Joe Duffy, yeah. No Los Brothers
No.
Hernandez, right? You know what I'm saying? How do you have a Masters comic show and you don't have like the Love and Rockets crew in there? It doesn't make sense to us. So that's what actually we started like, well, how do we change those parameters? Right? How do we actually push that? And we've dedicated the last like 14 years of our career to making spaces like this, because comics are for everyone, right?
Yeah,
Nowadays, everyone with money. That's
Well,
I'm just saying.
and there's definitely, I don't want anybody saying that Jackie Orms or Colleen Durant can't stand with anybody.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Because Jackie Orm stands above. Colleen Durant stands above.
Which is
so
why
many
she's
things.
finally allowed to be in the Hall of Fame, right? And we're speaking of, so Jackie Orm's the first black woman to actually have like a syndicated comic strip, and it was in the Courier, Pittsburgh Courier. Is finally getting inducted into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame this at the San Diego Comic Con, I think this year, right? Yeah. I think that's happening. Yeah. By the way, if you want to read more about her, there's a great book by Nancy Goldstein that's about her life. So.
All right, because you don't just talk the talk, you also walk the walk. I want you guys to talk about some of the projects, especially I've put up here. This book, Superb, is that David is currently writing alongside Dr. Sheena Howard for Lion Forge, and Black Comix Returns, which is $30 outside. Is by John. I want you to talk about this. I'm going to ask you two things. First, talk about this work and talk about why this work compels. And then I want you to pick something that you didn't do that you want to shine a spotlight on that you believe is underrepresented. Okay, so first you, and then somebody else.
Okay, well, so with Superb is published by Lion Forge.
I'm sorry, before Ray just ran by. I saw Ray Height, artist of Superb, trying to sneak out the room.
Ray, round of applause.
sold out.
was awesome.
Oh!
Sold out.
I go to lineforce.com.
See, even go to this guy.
No, so Line Boards, they launched about a year and a half ago their own little universe. It's called the Catalyst Prime Universe. They had approached me about co-writing with Dr. Sheena Howard, who was aspiring to write comics but hadn't written comics before. So we sort of teamed up in a co-writing capacity, but I was sort of on the fence about it. I really liked the idea that there was a black woman coming in, and we need more of that. So I was like, okay. But one of the things, Joe Illidge, the editor, said, well, one of the characters in the book has Down syndrome. And I was like, okay, I'll write the book. And he was like, really? Like, why? You know, like, what about that? And I was like, because I don't ever want someone, right now there's no books in the mainstream that have characters with Down syndrome. And if it gets screwed up, I would rather be the one screwing it up, trying to do it right, than to read somebody else doing it wrong, right? So,
What's the character's name?
yeah, that's, his name is Jonah. His superhero name is Cosmosis. He's a kid with Down syndrome who has superpowers, who has adopted the persona of his favorite fictional superhero. And now we're that superhero's name is Cosmosis. And now where we're going with the story, I don't even know if it's been announced yet or not, so maybe I should.
Breaking news. No.
Yeah, but starting with issue 10, I'm taking over the book solo, so Sheena's leading the book, and one of the things that I'm focusing on is what Jonah is going through, because we've partnered with the National Down Syndrome Society to make sure that we're not, doing anything wrong or inappropriate. And I've learned so much. I've met so many families, and one of the things I learned was like, if you have Down syndrome, you have no rights at all in this country. Like, period. You're only allowed to have a certain amount of money in the bank. If you get a job, legally, you can only make so much money. The lives of people with Down syndrome, even if they're high functioning, are so controlled by the government that it's like, they're almost not citizens. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, I didn't know any of this stuff, because unless you're a teacher or somebody who has someone in their family, you don't know this stuff. And I was like, I got to start putting this stuff in the book. I got to, or not overtly, but at least covertly talking about it. And so that's part of what we're going into, is we're getting into what it means to be differently able, but to have every aspect of your life controlled, and yet you're a superhero,
And punching cards.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. So that's what we're doing. Superb has been an interesting time, and the best part of it really is again, it's like the families that I've met and the workshops that I've done with kids with Down syndrome, and just really knowing that, like, because when I think about representation, sometimes I get caught up in the trap of, what does representation mean to me? And a lot of the times it just means me, right? Like black men, and then I have to stop and go, okay, no, it's not just that. So this is my opportunity more than anything to just like put up or shut up. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And it's hard sometimes, because it's really, because you realize, like, as a black writer, suddenly you're the voice of every black person, right? Then, now you're writing a character with Down syndrome. Suddenly you're the voice of not just every character with Down syndrome, but every character who has Asperger's or has autism, or who doesn't have anything even in that area, but it's still like, whatever. When I was writing Cyborg, it was like suddenly the entire, disabled community was like, I'm the voice of them. And boy, did I mess that one up. I got yelled at all the time. So, and it's just like, what we need to do is we need to start getting people in roles of power and creation, so that those voices are heard and they're even more authentic. And I'm not one of those people who believes, like, because, hey, if I ever wrote Star Trek, I'm not Vulcan, but I could write the hell out of Mr. Spock. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to be what you are writing.
That's
right.
So.
Well, before, you want to talk about something that you didn't write that you're interested in people knowing more about?
Something that I didn't write?
That you had nothing to do with.
If you want to shine.
Something you believe people should be up on.
That people should be up on. Well, man, that's a great one. And now I'm drawing a complete
You want to come back to?
Yeah, let me think about
All
it.
right.
So,
Now, John, now this book right here, this is your latest work, right?
Yes, this is, yes.
Black Comix
Up until Tuesday. Seriously, I have another book coming up.
This publisher parish, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously for us, yeah, because,
So
anyway.
talk about Black Comix Returns and why it's important for people to understand what's happening.
Okay, all right, so just a little bit of background. Remember I just told you about the first show that we did out of sequence. Because we were doing like representation across the board, we're looking at everyone. We actually did have like a subset of different creators, right? So we actually did have a bunch of black creators that we could work with. And so while we were putting together our sequence, we realized, oh my God, we've never curated a show before. So we were like, you should have seen us. We were like, we get the show, and then me and Damien are on the elevator coming from the meeting. We're like, man, we killed that presentation, bro. Wait, now we have to do this. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, we didn't even, so we're like, okay, well, we should do a practice show. Where can we do a practice show? So we actually did this show called Other Heroes. Actually, it was at Jackson State University, where I used to teach at Jackson State. I'm from Mississippi originally. And yeah, so we did a show there. It was supposed to be a smaller show to kind of like work out the kinks, that kind of thing. It was like 12 artists, right? 12 black artists dealing with stereotypes and things like that. What happened was it became 48 artists. It ballooned to 48 artists. I forgot how many, 147 pieces. But we did learn how to curate a show. And while we were doing it, we were working on out of sequence. So what happens then is that we're like, well, we actually have this subset of work that we could actually pitch as a book. So we pitched this book to Mark Batty, publisher. Unfortunately, Mark Batty is out of business now. They were a small boutique publisher out of New York. They did really great, like niche visual culture books, and that's what attracted us was the politics. They were doing these really cool books that, like for instance, they had a book just about Mexican black letter. Nice. And I was like, wow, that's a great book, but who would buy that? What I'm saying? But it's a wonderful book. I'll buy that. I know, I bought it. Yeah. Anyway, Mexican black letter. It was just about the use of old school black letter by the Mexican community. You know what I'm saying? That's all it was. That's the whole book. But anyway, so they picked us up. They were like, hey, we want to do this book. How do you get in touch with all these creators that you're talking about? So we've already got the creators. We just need the contract. So I designed it. Damien and I art directed it too. We pulled together all of the artists. This book, the first book was called Black Comix, African American Independent Comic Arts and Culture. And it's actually out of print because Mark Batty went out of business. This came out in 2010.
So you're going to self-publish it? That's all here.
No. We work on it. Well, this is what happened. So, we putting together these things is really kind of like herding burning cats that can teleport. So it's like, whoa, it's really difficult.
I'd like to read that book as well.
No, I know. So we actually really didn't have we actually did not think we were going to do another book like this, right? But I actually was teaching. I do a seminar at California College of the Arts. I teach a seminar around representation in comics at large for their MFA program. So I happened to be in the Bay, and I went to Mission Comics, and I had just talked about Black Comics, so I had a copy on me, and I met David Desiniaki, right, who runs Mission Comics, and I showed it to him, and it's like, oh my God, he was the marketing director for Magnetic Press, right? And he pitched it to say, hey, man, we should do an update of this book. I was like, sure, okay, right? Michael Kennedy, who was the CEO of that company, loved the idea, right? And we decided to do it. So we did it at Kickstarter. Kickstarter was wildly successful. Little did we know.
How successful?
Well, check this out. It actually made its money for, I think we were asking for only like maybe 15 grand or something like that. We made that in like 3 days, okay? And then before we knew it, we had raised almost $30,000 to do the book, right? So we actually able to do perks and make the book larger, get the little purple ribbon in it. You know the ribbon. You know,
a little special bookmark ribbon. Like you had the Bible.
Got the ribbon. Got the Bible ribbon.
You know what
I'm talking about. So anyway, what ends up happening is Lionforge buys Magnetic Press Collection. What? They bought our publisher, so that totally disrupted everything. It was wonderful.
So you two are co-workers?
Yes. Yeah, technically, yeah. And so that's what happened. And so this particular book showcases the growth because, there were not as many comic book conventions that looked at like, any ethnocentric communities, but now we actually have like 3 times as many, this one, probably would now be added, right? We can continue doing it. And it has double the amount of artists in it. It has like contextualizing essays. And we're still bumping into people that we probably should have had in the book, right? Huh, what? Well, people are like, hey, so when you issue number 3, I'm like, okay. Yeah. Point duly noted. Right? Anyway, so what's interesting about it is that it's kind of a slice of who's who to a certain degree of African American independent collective and creators and writers and people who make comics. And don't get me wrong, I love the Black Panther film. I'm going to see it again. You know, I love talking about it. But there is right under the surface a bubbling cauldron of like just African American independent creators who've been doing this work for so long, who are feeding themselves, making comics. We got people
world
tugging at your hand. That's right. So for instance, we have people who are like, you know, like our friend Chuck Collins, who's a bouncer, who bounces the hell out of people, and then he goes.
What I was going to point out was bouncing. You stole my idea.
I'm sorry, but I didn't say enough about. I didn't say a lot.
You can just still go. We'll get
You
to
can
that.
say,
Go ahead.
steal it back.
Keep telling your
Who doesn't, and he'll go home and make comics, right? So the one I want to highlight is Maddie's Rocket by
Maddie's Rocket.
Tim Fielder. Maddie's Rocket is a alternative history science fiction story about a young woman named Maddie Roddy, who's from Mississippi, like Tim Fielder and myself are. Set in like an alternative history where basically she becomes an astronaut and she fights like Nazis.
Okay, what year?
1938. That's right, 1938.
Maddie's Rocket.
Maddie's Rocket. And he's putting it out. He puts it out himself. He's based out of Harlem, you know, right around the corner from the Schomburg. And it's, you know, our friend, and he puts this book out. It's really, really beautiful.
So the book you were going to tell us about.
No, well, it was Bounce.
I'm sorry.
I
got
Still
excited.
can. We can get into the details.
I just love Bounce, and
Yeah.
you know, Chuck does these. A lot of times they're single panel gag cartoons. He's got the art of telling a joke in a really short amount of space and time, and he posts that stuff free. You know, I look at Keith Knight's stuff regularly. He's up on Patreon. What now? Oh, Tuskegee Airs is another good one. Black by Kwanzaa. I can't remember Kwanzaa's last name.
Osajifo.
Okay.
Sanjifo?
I believe that's right.
Safo and
Because I went to college with somebody who had said that.
Sanjifo.
Jamal Idol.
Carrie Randolph.
Anything Kari Randolph's doing. I mean, there's so much stuff. Jason Reeves stuff, 133 Yards.
Yep.
Now you're stealing my stuff.
Yeah.
I was going to recommend that.
Okay, so I mean, I hopefully not everything's sold out because I haven't had a chance to buy anything out there. But there's a lot of stuff out there, and you just sort of look around, and then I think that like guys like myself and John and Hannibal, I try to at least once in a while focus on something. I'll post on Instagram or Twitter, hey, check this out. This is a great book. This is something really fun. And I think the key thing is again like. I went and saw Black Panther. I was very entertained. I posted a little something about it. I'll go see it again. But it's like, to be 100% honest, let's be honest, right?
Keep it real.
Like Disney does not need any of us in this room like telling people go out and see Black Panther, right? Like they got that on lockdown.
They got it on lockdown.
Like that movie's gonna clear before this weekend's up close to 200 million. You can do it if you want. Whereas like Jason's stuff. 133R or Greg's book, The Were Spider, Robert Roach's stuff, like everything that's out there, they need that sort of, we need that stuff. Even like to a large, I mean, I hate to say it, this is where I'll get in trouble, but it's like, you know, Luke Cage, the TV show Luke Cage broke Netflix. At the time it was their #1 rated show. But the comic Netflix, the comic Luke Cage, which I was writing, just got canceled. They got canceled because of really bad sales.
So what's really bad sales?
No, this was actually really bad sales. Even by the standards of like, this was like one of the things where you're like, oh. You know, people are like, wow, they made a Luke Cage comic. Like, yeah, you never heard of it. So that's why it's been canceled. But yeah, that's the thing. It's a lot of it is just spreading the word, and it's also about being open-minded enough to, you know, when someone recommends a comic to me, like I look at it and I read it, and if I like it, I tell other people because word of mouth is how, you know, a movie like Get Out, which was I think was a great movie. Part of the reason it became the success it became was because of word of mouth. That's how it exceeded, you know, industry expectations. There's like we have power, both as consumers but as advocates for consumers, and that's it. It's a lot of just about spreading the word.
So if people buy a book here, they should tweet about it, they should post about it, share about it on Facebook.
Exactly.
Well, I'll say, and that's kind of what I've become as a professional advocate. That's what. So most of my work and research is about culminating community, right? The other thing too I want to point out is like we actually have a Facebook fan page that's dedicated to our book. It has about 26,000 followers. So whenever any one of us does things and I see it, I repost it and I put it out on Twitter because we actually have a Twitter account connected to that too. So if you're doing Kickstarters, if you're doing an interview, if you're doing a new children's book, we put it on that page.
What's that Facebook group called?
It's just called Black Comix. Actually, it's the name of the first book, but if you type in Black Comix, XCOMIX, it'll pop up. It's follow us. It's a Facebook fan page. Again, and we will, if we see things that we think will benefit this particular community, we will put it on there.
Yeah, Hannibal likes this post.
Yeah, exactly.
Very quickly, I'm going to just talk about the third book you see there is called Here Comes Justice. It's a free book. It's free. It's free. It's an online book that we did for Free Comic Book Day last year at the Operative Network, which is this creative studio I work with. Robert Roach, who's sitting out there, is one of the members. Ray Anthony Height, who you saw, is one of our members. And we are just trying to do good work. And that book has samples of this book, Men Through, The Anger of Angels, which wasn't done at the time, but now is for $10. And some other stuff, and I wrote all the stuff in that. And what compels me about that is the idea, I saw an Instagram post where there were two young black kids next to a poster for Black Panther. And they said, I'm this one. No, I'm this one. I'm this one. And that's not something that they were able to do pointing to something that looked like them. And to be able to create those stories, I have two daughters who are 8 and 14. And to be able to create heroes that look like them, to be able to create stories that can move them and reach into those spaces is very important to me. That's why I try to do books, was what I call the Johnny Carson rule. If you couldn't see it on Johnny Carson's show, I'm not going to put it in the book. I try to do that, and that work is free, like I said, online at operative.net. And so now, since we got a little time left, we're going to, yes, okay. If you have questions, I'm going to Phil Donahue this joint. I may have aged myself. And walk out there with this microphone. So, yeah, I did. I'll never joke like Phil Donahue. He almost killed himself a lot of times. Phil's still alive. I wish I could hear that. But anyway, if you have questions, I'll come over and you can ask questions of our esteemed panelists. So we'll start with the gentleman here.
So this goes out to all of you. Where do you think like the Operative Network and say Lions Forge and Aspen Comics will fit into and grow the space into a larger medium, if you will, when it's battling everybody's favorite DC or Marvel? You know what I mean? Because everybody knows DC Marvel. You say Lions Forge and people are like, what is
Even in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Well, first, one of the companies you mentioned that I work for, Aspen Comics. Well, I love y'all. What's up, Vince? What's up, y'all? They're not black, so first. One of the things that John talked about is being advocates. That if you like something, share it. If you buy something on Amazon, write a review of it, because every positive word pushes that a little bit farther than it would have gotten before. In Los Angeles, there's a restaurant called Simply Wholesome that I go to a lot. And it's a black-owned restaurant, and they charge a little bit more for things than I can get other places. They have a little store where I can buy acidophilus or health food stuff. And it's a little bit more expensive than Whole Foods, but I want it in my community. So I go there. I call it paying the black tax.
That's right.
And more importantly, my kids see me going there. They see me go out of my way to drive over there. And they see that, and I hope that they will adopt those same behaviors, because I want them to have that in their communities as well. And that's one of the things we can do. You can stand as an advocate. If you like it, share it. If you like it, tell somebody. Because as much as we love Black Panther, T'Challa ain't gonna tell you about you. T'Challa's not gonna tell you about Men Through, right, or Wildfire Wednesdays, free web comics. So I'll let the other panelists answer that as well.
No, I definitely piggyback on that. Like, the amount of market penetration is just ridiculous when you look at like these conglomerates, right? But at the same time, I mean, you only know what you know. I mean, I think the last like super famous illustrator was probably someone like what was that guy?
Obviously not that famous.
No, I know. Oh man, he was big in the 1930s. Like, he was like I'm like totally spacing right now. He used to work for like the New York. Oh shoot!
I've had a lot to drink. I can't tell you.
No, I'm totally spaced on it. He was like the last famous. He'll come to me. Anyway, so the idea is that being a famous comic book artist or a comic book writer is like being a famous dentist. You know what I'm saying? It really is. It really is. Like Jim Lee to us is like, whoa, Jim Lee. But you know, you walk outside Jim Lee, what are you doing? I don't know what that is. You know, so that's the thing. Remember,
You got a villain in Italy now. You got a villain in Italy.
No, that's true. But the thing is, we don't know because we don't understand the process. A lot of people only know what they know. You have to to penetrate to get to the point. You know, you're gonna definitely have the word of mouth leads. You're gonna definitely have create a community, all different things to talk about to push it forward. Because there's institutions are really designed to not change. That's their superpower. You know, institutions are like, watch me not change. Seriously, that's what they do. They're not there to really. They're there to keep a particular status quo in place. And so we have to create alternative networks. The reason why I keep, and it's a lot of work, keep creating spaces like this is because I'm trying to utilize as an alternative distribution site. So much work. What I call the cosmic chitlin circuit. Yeah, because you create these networks outside of what's going on. Because if you cannot get in, then you have to create the other spaces. We have to rely on each other. So that's what I think.
Ava DuVernay talked about that. She was like, I don't want to sit at the table. I want to build my own house.
I want to build my own house. That's why Bill Campbell started creating Rosetta. That's why Bill created.
That's all you got to say?
That's all I got to say. No, I think that it's look, I'll be 100% honest. I think that in the next 18 to 24 months, we're going to see like some pretty seismic changes in the comic publishing industry. Especially if at least one company doesn't turn things around, we're going to see a collapse. It's in free fall right now. We're going to see retailers go out of business, and it's not a good thing. But at the same time, it's like there's some of us that have to think about, okay, how can I reposition myself so that I can survive this, right? So how I can earn a living. And it's going to be shows like this, and it's going to be spreading word of mouth. It's going to be going to Kickstarter and knowing that, okay, well, if I write a book for a publisher right now, and I can't move 10,000 units to that publisher. Like, I'm not meeting my royalty threshold, I'm not, I can't buy these books at a reasonable cost for my own needs. Why don't I just publish it myself and sell 2,500 units, and I've made more money selling those 2,500 units than them selling under, 10,000 or whatever. So it's all about, like, if you want to do that hustle, it goes back to, again, keeping the stuff in the trunk of your car. And it's about going out and meeting people, and even if, you got social anxiety, which the vast majority of comic creators have, it's like, deal with it. Like, I'll have a nervous breakdown later tonight. I'll have my anxiety attack later tonight, but like, I know how to put it on, I mean, I'm high right now. And I'm just kidding.
Don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs.
I'm high on life, vitamin B12. So I see a hand up back there. I know we got to wrap up.
We got this question. I want to try not to kick this man's phone. What's your question, sir?
Are there things that independent creators can do to capitalize on Black Panther's success?
What can creators do to capitalize on the success of Black Panther?
Well, I think that really what everybody needs to do, they just need to watch me, watch my career, write a book about me afterwards, because I'm doing it, I'm capitalizing on it. I mean, that's why I was in LA all last week. But I think you just need to create something, you need to put it out there, and you shouldn't be trying to emulate the Marvel model or the DC model, trying to create Black Panther. You have to define success on your own. I mean, a bad selling book at Marvel might only sell 5,000 units, right? If your book hits 20,000 units at Marvel, you're canceled, right? There's some books that are selling 5,000, 6,000 units from Marvel, and they're going to be canceled. They've been canceled. It's already there. It's just a matter of time, right? But if I sell 5,000 units of my own book, I'm doing all right. And so the key thing is how do you get out there? How do you do that hustle? And it's like, I'm not trying to, like, I'm co-writing a book for Image right now called Bitter Root, and it's coming along really well. When I saw Black Panther the other day, I was like, oh, like, there's some stuff in here we might need to change, because all people are going to think is we ripped off Black Panther, even though we didn't. We've been working on this for a while, right? And so what I'm trying to tell my co-writers, sometimes you got to change course, because sometimes someone just beats you to the punch. And I tell this to my students all the time. They're like, that was my idea. And I was like, well, I don't care. Like it was your idea, but somebody else came out with it first. I mean, the Air Force One, that movie with Harrison Ford, straight up, that was my idea. Like I wrote that movie when I was like 22 years old.
About you, I knew it was going to be some shady right there.
You know, but it was like somebody else beat me to the punch and got their president on an airplane. You know, Die Hard on an airplane with the president of the United States. I told people that idea, they were like, "That's the stupidest thing." And I was like, "Maybe it is." And then 5 years later, somebody made it, and I was like, "Oh, you're stupid."
We have Sharknado.
Sharknado, exactly.
John, do you have a response to how independent creators can capitalize on Black Panther?
Yeah, I mean,
Make some good ass shit, because that movie was dope.
Yeah, it was really
I'm
good.
sorry.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's really, really
I was
good.
like,
I was in
yo.
my feelings. I was like, oh my God. Somebody's cutting onions. Anyway, no, it's crazy.
Oh my God, that Killmonger.
I know, right? All right. Got the Killmonger. You know, again, just to kind of piggyback off of some of the things David said, I mean, I don't necessarily have to be Jay-Z. I can be Tech Nine. You know what I'm saying?
I love Tech Nine.
No, Tech Nine is dope. See, the thing is like, so everybody knows who Jay-Z is, right? Jay-Z's a billionaire, you know, multi-mogul.
He's Beyonce's husband.
Beyonce's husband.
Let's keep it real. He's Beyonce's husband.
Yeah, exactly. Tech Nine, though, Tech Nine is like, it's out of Memphis, is that right?
No,
Kansas City.
Kansas City. Kansas City. It was somewhere around there. And basically has a specific style of
Missouri,
hip
not
hop.
Kansas.
Right. And has followers that will go anywhere to any of his concerts, buy anything he puts out, and he's a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? He's good. So he basically has a set number of people. He's built his community. So I don't know. I think the question is like, you know, how do we get better at creating the work and building a community and pushing it out? They're definitely not going to have any issues around, like you said, making money from this particular film. Yes, we can actually build community around the idea of Afrofuturism, that kind of thing could be really.
You've done some work in that, haven't you?
I have done some work in Afrofuturism.
Could you tell us about it?
Black speculative, culture, essentially. Afrofuturism, a term that was coined by Mark Derry in 1993, has seen a resurgence in the last decade or so. I think some of the success of Black Panther has been because of that particular wave of Black speculative culture. But Black people have been creating Black speculative work that's science fiction, horror, fantasy, for generations, actually. So Afrofuturism is just a small sliver of that. So I think maybe harnessing that to a certain degree to actually push us into the future could be a way to do it. All right.
Any other questions? Because I'm ready to run out and flow down here this joint.
I got some.
Oh, right, he's got to go sell them. Well, in that case, they want to go sell those last two books of Black Comix Return. So thank you for joining us. My name is Hannibal Tabu. Find us online.
Best place to find me, just the only one I can really remember is like J.I. Jennings, and that's Twitter. So J.I. Jennings. Very easy, because that's what I'm That's it.
Yeah, and right now it's probably Twitter, David Walker 1201. I'm about to lay low, really, on social media because I'm like, there's some work I have to get done.
Okay.
Social media is too big of an interruption. Okay. But I'm getting ready I'm going back into self-publishing. That's where I'm going this year. So there's going to be some yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Y'all have a good day. Appreciate it.
Thanks again for listening to the audio version of this important panel. For the video version, you can check out our YouTube channel or our Facebook page for the live stream. Did you know, aside from iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn, The Hall H Show is also on Spotify. So there is no excuse to not be a subscriber to our show. In fact, do a Google search for the term, the voice of independent creators. Peace, cheers, and artists assemble.